Every day, human beings interact with each other. They wake up and go out into the world with a set of goals and expectations, seeking attain and to attain happiness through a series of interactions with their living environment, and most importantly, other human beings. In order to interact successfully with their fellow Homo sapiens, they must be able to effectively communicate their wants and needs. Yet, they often find a lack of success or frustration in the outcome. This is often due to miscommunication or the failure to communicate adequately. While there are five defined forms of communication, it is nonverbal communication that many people find they have trouble controlling effectively. In 1872, Charles Darwin published The Expressions of Emotions in Man and Animal and concluded that nonverbal communication was a primary mode of delivery and placed verbal communication as simply an extension of the nonverbal form. This raises a good question. Can nonverbal communication be learned? The answer is yes. For many a century, the scientific study of nonverbal communication has been a focus of many professions. Case studies and data collections have been performed by a multitude of organizations with a goal in mind how to improve their ability to impart and obtain knowledge with their clients and peers. While the data collected has been has shown a possibility of approaches and outcomes, a basic set of rules, or so-called rules, have been found to be effective in teaching professionals effective nonverbal skills. A person must learn to recognize and control a multitude of personal dressing habits, body posture, define social spacing, physical gestures, and facial expressions. Learning to recognize the environment one is going to interact and the effect it will have on the outcome of the information exchange will allow a more direct result, cutting down on interference and loss of understanding. In this case, we will look at how a professional medical expert will interact with a client or a student. Before a professional enters the room, they need to make a choice on how they wish to be perceived. According to an article written for Clothing and Textiles Research Journal, ML Danhos states, dress is a symptomatic means of transmission of information about the wearer. A person's attire has been shown to convey qualities such as character, sociability, confidence, and intelligence. Many of us have heard the expressions, the clothes make the man, and the effect on initial impressions we make on others. Studies have shown we are often judged and slotted into an observer's personal mental category, with first impressions being formed in a fraction of a second. You can never change the first impression you make on another individual, so attention to personal attire is important. A professional should be dressed in clean, unwrinkled clothes of moderate to high quality. For men, this should be a button-up shirt with a pair of slacks and tie accompanied with dress shoes. If a lab coat is needed, it should be unstained or in daily laundry with your name and qualifications embroidered onto the chest or visible on a quality name tag. Ladies should wear a business suit or a dress of clean and quality material. The outfit should be tasteful and unalarming but comfortable. If needed, a lab coat should be of the same quality and description as stated before and should be worn over the attire. Colors should be muted and patterns kept simple, otherwise they can be perceived as alarming and offsetting. If face coverage or equipment is needed, it should be hung around the neck or placed in a pocket neatly. The impression needs to be of a well-dressed, organized individual who is attentive to small details and seems confident in caring for themselves. Following the dress code will put clients at ease and allow to trust more easily. After entering a room, body posture can be one of the strongest influences of nonverbal communication and one of the simplest to control. Raymond H. Hall, PDH, states, our posture can reveal to others things we do not entail and to review. Our posture reveals what we are thinking. To give an example, a person who is angry will lean forward into their toes, muscles tense. They are filled with a sense of outrage and a need to make the other person acknowledge their distress. This aggression is communicated to the other person because the process suggests they are willing or wanting to rush forward and cause possible harm. The result is that fear and distress is communicated to the recipient, and the focus of the communication and the actual purpose of the interaction is lost. This sort of interaction often results in mental distress and even led to physical violence. In order to effectively communicate with body posture, a medical professional should take on a pose that reflects on what they wish to achieve. If you're sitting in a chair, listen to another person and share personal information. You can show you are mentally engaged by paying attention. If you sit slotted with shoulders hunched, elbows on the table, and your head and your hands, you give the impression you are bored or have no care for what the other person's telling you. You already decided on how you will advise them, and nothing they have to say is any importance. Hey, if you lean in back in a chair, a leg up with your shoulders back, you give a sense of being too casual. This can lead to people believe you might be listening, but you don't really care, or you think, what they have to tell you is of little importance. Both of these examples will negatively affect the outcome of the conversation. In order to show interest without intimidation, a person must take on a posture that speaks of readiness, but without being alarmed. If sitting in a chair, sit straight with an attentive posture. Keep your hands on the desk, table in front of you, or sitting folded in your lap. Make sure your feet are in a relaxed, supportive position underneath you, ready to stand if needed, but not to give a sense of jumping up or kicking out at a possible target. The idea is to show interest and attention to the person across from you while not being bored or intimidated. This will help them relax and trust you, and will help the conversation stay focused on the problem they are experiencing and allow you to better impart your expertise. If you meet a patient or a client standing, it is a good idea to stand with your feet approximately 18 inches apart. This natural stand can be held for a long amount of time and keeps personal discomfort to a minimum, so you can stay more relaxed. If your feet are too close together, it will give the impression that you're about to fall or you are ready to spring up forward. And this can imply you're skittish and worried. If you place your feet too far apart, you will appear as though you mean to attack or possibly spring because you anticipate danger or distress. By keeping your feet apart about 18 inches, you can stand naturally and at ease without slouching. This will give the other person the impression you are interested in and have no plan to leave or want to get away. You can show this in the place you want to be and where you plan to stay. The natural stance is also a mark of confidence and it will help build trust in the person you're communicating with. They will feel more willing to share information with you and listen to what you have to say. When interacting with a client, your location and distance from them is important. A defined social space is a considerate of where others physically stand or sit in relation to you. If you stand too close to a person, they'll feel uncomfortable and even threatened. If you are too far away, an atmosphere of disconnect or even disinterest can arise. Where you place yourself regard to furniture, objects, can affect how we perceive by others. An article written for Journal of Advances in Medical Education and Professionalism, Dr. Phantom Banfufu and Nashran Sokopor describe some of the effects found on a medical class full of students in relation to a teacher place themselves in a class. They stated the best place for the teacher in a class is to stand near his or her table and all students see him. The teacher must sometimes change his place, but if he or she always changes his or her place physically in class, the focus of the learners will reduce and the learning process will not proceed. A good distance to stand while speaking with a single individual is about around 36 inches or 3 feet away. The distance is not close enough to reach out and touch another person, but it is close enough to put you within stepping distance. This allows both parties to feel the physical presence of the other participant without feeling threatened or impeded, unless a need for authority and control needs to be established. One should never to try to communicate with an object or an obstacle in between and should attempt to be on even footing. Height and strength are key parameters in nonverbal communication, and looming over someone will make them feel inferior and defensive. It is important to make your client feel safe and willing to share their personal information with you, or something important could be missed. When interacting with a client, attention to physical gestures is important and very important. The way a person moves and the speed at which they do can convey conflicting messages to what they are trying to say if the gesture seems alarming or out of place. Gestures can also vary widely across cultures and how they are used and what they mean to those that observe. A simple example can be seen in pointing. American culture sees pointing at an object or place as directing attention to it. It tells a person to turn their focus from the speaker to the object or place they are pointing at. This can't work well if that is what you want them to do, but it can cause confusion or loss of interest if the person is unable to follow your pointing. Alarm and a sense of hurt and being attacked can also be felt by the client if you point at or in the direction of. It is considered a gesture of lecture or scolding and makes people disengage to protect themselves. If you must gesture, the speed at which a slow, deliberate movement will impart interest and control, while a slashing gesture is harming and alarming. Gestures should be also be deliberate and with purpose. Looking at the one's watch while talking is common, but it gives the impression that you have more important things on your mind or in a hurry. Placing your hands in your pockets or behind your back will make you slouch and impart a feeling of trying to conceal something. Crossing your arms or holding them back will seem argumentative and close off to a client. Toes tapping and the crossing and uncrossing of feet and legs is a sign of discomfort or disinterest, so it should also be stated that any gestures performed slowly will come off as deliberate and pull more strongly at the person's perception of the gestures. In Disney's Aladdin, the genie tells Aladdin to keep your hands and feet inside the vehicle, and is a good starting point. While interacting with a client, keep your gestures and body movement in a controlled, natural speed. Do not fling out a hand or make sudden movement unless you mean to startle the person you're talking with. If you must point, try doing it with your hand turned over and inviting gestures. This position will still move attention to the intended target, but will not alarm and will not make them feel and it will make them feel supported, but they will feel they have you have confidence in their ability to follow what they are saying and pointing out. That's what that will help them trust your advice. If your hand and shake is required, then make sure it's in control. Keep in mind it is and keep in mind to make sure it is not limp or overly soft and or nor overly formed as to cause pain. A moist, cleaning handshake can repel people faster than one that is too firm. A handshake that denotes sincerity and genuineness is slightly firm, warm, and not overpowering. Placing your other hand over the hand of the person whom you're shaking with is appropriate on occasion, but can appear too personal to some people. Use it only when you feel that it is appropriate. Another part of the gesture aim to be considered is control of your eyes. The eyes are the soul to the window and will give impressions of what is holding your attention. Eyes that dart around and glancing off or overhead of a client will serve as jittery and distracted. In turn, looking down often seems to some as distrustful or a sign of personal insecurity. Looking directly at a person or staring them in the eyes can create feelings of intimacy or overinterest. Some may find direct look in the eyes to be challenging or even condescending. If a speaker's eyes stare downwards to the neck, it may cause the client to perceive interaction, lewd interaction intentions, or unperceived issues they were unaware of. It can be difficult to know where to look and when. Hall suggests the use of the nose. When I'm speaking to an audience, no matter how large or how small, I make contact with many of in the audience as I can by concentrating on their nose. By concentrating on the nose, it can appear we are considering only on that person and no one else. It is a good rule to make sure your gaze is relaxed and eased. Intensity is alarming, and most clients come to a professional to be researched. And try to avoid staring at a person too long as this sustained contact can feel threatening. Predators in the wild stare down their prey, and we have the same instincts. You want the person to feel you are gazing upon them with a sense of interest and warm, friendly regard. Lastly, when speaking to a client, make sure to control your facial expressions. Many people perceive facial expressions as the key to a person's real thoughts. Bamboo and Sokopol found that facial expression is more effective than other modes of nonverbal cues and gives us a lot of information about the emotional status of others to the extent that some theorists believe that facial expression is the most important source of information after language. A smile can be inviting if it's paired with warm words. Can't a sense of distrust or falsehood if paired with a conflicting explanation, or even cruel if the words are hard and perceived as and cutting and demeaning. Villains are often portrayed as smiling and showing teeth at a moment of strong emotion. Many people have trouble or unawareness of personal control over their facial expressions. Have you ever met a person with resting bitch face or the ever present expression of anger or dissatisfaction with whatever they're looking at? They often are to cause people to feel upset, disliked, or even threatened when the person glances at them. While there is no control intent in the expression, the effect is the same. If they did feel the expression, these negative emotions are towards what they are perceiving. Knowledge of the effect they will have on people can be explained once and a relationship with common interactions has been established, but that can be hard to achieve and embarrassing. When addressing a client or crew, an enthusiastic and a positive mood should be shown. Keep the lines of your mouth and eyebrows relaxed and naturally concentrated. Avoid sucking in your cheeks or lips, as this can cause frowns or grimace. A slight smile can be appropriate if the exchange of information is positive and or inviting. Anger should never be shown, even if you are feeling angry, as it can lead to fear in your client. If you find a natural H lines in your face and make it difficult to control the effect of your expressions, simply makeup or even the use of glasses or a beauty mark can help soften the effects. The effects should be kept subtle and unalarmed and natural looking. It is scientifically supported that nonverbal communication is being recognized as one of the strongest factors in information exchange between one or more individuals. We are not born with the ability to speak, but we are born with a set of RNA and programmed instincts passed down from the days of our ancestors. We perceive meaning in every little gesture's twitch placement of our body when speaking to others. As a professional, it is important to hone personal nonverbal skills when speaking with clients or peers. The practice and appropriate application of these skills can help establish a strong line in information exchange while engaging and trust and worth into the relationship. The proper selection of personal dressing habits, awareness of body postures, attention to defining social standing, control of physical gestures, the and facial expression can be established. Anyone is competent and able. And looking at the skills attained for a professional to look and to improve their communication skills with a client, we have seen the effective power available in simplest gestures and a path to improving their results.